Thumbnail time. Alright, cool. Actually, hold this real quick. I put this stuff. You don't read like series at all, do you?
No, it's hard for me to follow series.
Am I in focus? Okay.
Okay.
Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Ellias. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joined here with a special guest, my girlfriend.
Hi, I'm Cindy from With Cindy.
Today we're just going to do a random video where we just give you guys some random recommendations. But before we get further into the video, a message from today's video sponsor. I would like to mention that this video is kindly sponsored by Karma. So Karma is basically an app and Chrome extension that ensures you never miss a price drop or coupon code. So I've actually worked with Karma before and I love them because when it comes to saving monies, especially with all those discounts on like furniture, household items, clothes, when it comes to me personally, you already know, it's all about saving those monies on all the books. Like I said, we're all here for the good karma and the good vibes. And speaking of saving monies, through Karma, I was able to save a percentage off of a book that was on my wish list for a really long time. This book is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This was on my wish list for a really long time and I wanted this specific UK edition. Thanks to Karma, I finally got it. So Karma is really quick and easy to use. All you gotta do is click the link down in the description box below, add it to your Chrome extension, and you're pretty much all set. Whether you're shopping or browsing your favorite online store, you can save your items by clicking on the Karma button. Karma will then send you notifications via email or mobile when an item you saved goes on sale, has relevant coupons, or comes back in stock. As you can see here, you can organize all of your items into your own curated lists so you can be organized while shopping mindfully. And on the Chrome version, Karma will literally scan the internet for relevant coupons and apply them automatically at checkout. So that Chrome extension is a must. Another really cool feature about Karma is that you can earn cash back when you choose to shop with their select retail partners. Karma is completely free to download, and if you're looking to save a little bit of the monies, you can click the link down in the description box below. Thank you again to Karma for sponsoring today's video, and back to a regular broadcast. So today I have a number of books to show you guys, and I'm going to be holding up some of these books. While Cindy won't be because I'm in my own apartment, these are my books behind me, and you're on my channel. I'll probably have to insert the cover.
You can insert it over my face. It's fine. People tend to say like, do you even like any books? But that's so stupid because I always talk about books that I like, but then they only click on books that I rant about. So it's like, of course you're going to think I don't like any books.
It's cynicism for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, did I even say that right? Cynicism?
Yeah.
Cynicism. Okay, because I usually would.
You're gonna be like, it's a juxtaposition for me. Stupid.
It kind of is though, because.
Oh, I mean, I guess, but you're trying so hard to make it happen. Also, you said that I was your girlfriend so seriously. People are still gonna believe this shit.
Guys, to this day, we both have gotten comments where people actually think we're dating. We are. Alright, so I have a list here. We're gonna recommend books from different genres. We're gonna do something more like broad. In general, you can get something a little bit from both of us. Alright guys, with that being said, let's go ahead and get straight to the recommendations. So I'm going to list off the genres that we'll recommend from. So first up is going to be literary fiction and thriller. YA can be any type of YA book. Fantasy, queer, and personal recs that we're going to give to each other. Yeah.
Well, to the audience. Well, I wouldn't give a lot of these recs to you. We like different books.
Oh, really?
We like different books, dude.
We do.
Yeah.
Actually, we have very subjective and just polar opposite opinions on certain books, I think.
That's how our relationship is so spicy. There's like so much tension and disagreement, and we have to get it out in the bedroom.
Yeah, heavily 100% disagreement. So, you're gonna go first and I'll go second.
Why me?
Ladies first, bitch. First up is literary fiction. What would you recommend?
I like a lot of literary fiction, but I think one that I haven't talked about in a while, and I think one that still has left an impression on me. By that, I mean when I see other media that this book references to, I feel disgusted, which means it has left an impact on me, and that is My Dark Vanessa. Heard of it, right?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a novel that is kind of like two timelines. One takes place in 2000 and the other takes place, I believe, in 2015. The main character, Vanessa, when she was 15 years old, which was in the year 2000, she had a relationship with her teacher who was like 40 something.
Oh no.
And when I say relationship, honestly, it's not even a relationship because he basically groomed and manipulated her.
Is it based on like a true story or is
so,
I heard it was like a almost like a memoir in a way.
So this is fiction, but another woman wrote a book that was a memoir, and she criticized the author of My Dark Vanessa for copying her story. But then later, the author for My Dark Vanessa had to come out and say, actually, like, this is like...
Oh, no.
Yeah. So she, you know, kind of has similar experience. So it really sucked that she had to, like, you know, come out and say that. I have read My Dark Vanessa, and I really enjoyed it. And I do genuinely feel like she wrote it in a way where she knew what she was talking about. I got that impression from the book, because there were just so many ways in which she layered how this nasty ass teacher groomed her, and also just all of the mental Olympics that you do to kind of justify the situation. Because in present day, in 2015, that's like when the Me Too movement kicked in, and in present day you find out that other students were saying that this teacher had like assaulted them as well, and so he's getting into trouble, and they are coming to the main character and saying, like, you need to, like, come out and talk about this because this happened to you. The more victims who speak out, then the more people will believe them. But she doesn't want to speak out because she's still in denial about the nature of their relationship, where she was like, well, it was different with me because I had asked for it or I had consented to it. So it was just like a lot of like complicated psychological things. I never was into like teacher-student romances, but I always kind of like was able to gloss over that, where I just turned off my brain when I saw it. But now when I see that, like, I just remember My Dark Vanessa, because I felt like that was such a true depiction of what it's really like and how it affects like the victim. So it's very serious and dark. Like, you're not gonna have a good time when you read it. We're starting off heavy, but yeah.
Super strong. I'm over here like, read this.
I mean, honestly, when I read literary, it tends to be pretty heavy, but this is probably one of the heaviest. And I read the audiobook too, and this bitch sounded so depressed, the audiobook narrator. I'm like, I remember I was listening to the audiobook while I was like lying in bed in the dark, and I'm like, dude, I'm fucking depressed just listening to it. But I felt like, you know, it was effective, it was impactful, and I really do think that it did a good job in showing what it's like to be in a relationship. Well, not relationship, but to be a victim of something like that. Anyway, I have made the video a bummer, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to you. I should literally
just title the video My Dark Vanessa Review.
Yeah.
Me editing this video. Shut the fuck up.
Dude, that's why my videos are so long, especially my wrap-up videos, because I don't know how to shut up, because I have to expand the story so much.
Though. That's good.
Yeah, whatever. I'm giving you content for your channel, so.
For my pick, I've recommended this book countless times on my channel. I fucking love it. It's like literally one of my favorite books of all time. I read it in the beginning of the year, and this book is On Earth, We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. So this one is an exploration, I think, of generational trauma and how that affects everybody in that family, how it affects them moving forward, especially living in like a different culture, an immigrant family coming from Vietnam trying to assimilate here in America. And it just deals a lot with sexuality, identity. It was just honestly so beautiful. I've talked about it so much already, so this is no surprise that it'll be on here. I'm trying to recommend books that aren't like super favorites that I had talked about on this channel. I had to talk about this one and recommend it to you guys, so.
I've heard lots of great things about this book as well. Well, okay, so I started listening to the audiobook, and then I stopped because I feel like I would rather read it physically. Because with the writing style, like, you can tell that the author writes poetry because it's very lyrical. And so I just felt like the audiobook was not giving me as much as I would want, like, to physically read it. He knows how to pack so much in so little. And I think that's a sign of a good author. Like, you don't need to write hundreds and hundreds of pages. You don't need to overwrite shit. Like, you can just write as little as you can, and it's still fucking good.
So if you want to be in a depressing mood, but also like in a good way, read this book.
So 2 different flavors of depression. Honestly, this category should just be depressing books instead of literary. But I guess there's kind of the same thing.
The next genre is thriller, so you go first.
I don't have like a super strong recommendation because I'm not an avid thriller reader like you are. I definitely still think I have yet to find my ultimate favorite thriller book. Because I want to be a good sport and have a book for you, I'm gonna go with the last thriller book that I read that I felt like had a good impression on me for the most part. It's not a perfect book. That's why I don't think it's like my ultimate favorite. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And
I have that book. It's like right over there.
Yeah, you've been, oh, should I hold it up then? I just thought it was really fun. His writing style is just very stylistic. Takes place in the 90s. It's a Southern-based thriller where it centers around a bunch of housewives who have started a book club.
That's funny.
One day, there is this new guy that moves into the neighborhood and they start to have suspicions about him. Their book club mostly reads true crime books and thriller books, kind of like on high alert, and they're like, oh my god, what if he's like the next Ted Bundy or something? Obviously, by the title, there is a little bit of a paranormal twist as well. So the main character kind of goes on this hunt to try to get his ass to expose him for being an awful, awful villain. Again, I liked it because it was fun. I really like reading books about older women, especially like in a thriller novel. I think like it's kind of fun to see a bunch of housewives try to take down an antagonist. I don't think that this is a perfect book because there's this one side character that I thought was paid dust and she should have had more justice to her. And I wish she had been the main character instead because I think after reading her story, her little subplot, I was kind of like, man, I wish we weren't following these main characters because they're not giving me as much as the side character.
It's giving me Fright Night vibes. I'm going to recommend an adult and also a YA thriller that I've recently read and one that I've read a long time ago. First one, Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone. This one is really interesting because it's so short, but it's a standalone. It's like less than like 300 pages, I think.
Aren't all thrillers standalones though?
True. I don't even know why I said that. It's about a woman named Jane who sort of goes on like this promising young woman tirade against this other guy, but the fun fact is she's a sociopath. It's really interesting because she talks about the element of how people associate killers with sociopaths, and she sort of like makes fun of that aspect, and I thought it was really interesting how she says like, oh, you know, not all sociopaths are dangerous or serial killers.
Wait, so she's getting revenge?
She's getting revenge for something that has happened in her past life. I don't want to give anything away because when it comes to thrillers, and especially it's so short, don't really want to give too much on that aspect, but I think it was just really well written, and I really liked the main character. She was really funny, even though she was a sociopath. And you know, it's just really interesting because, you know, how many people do we know who are actually sociopaths but, you know, really hide it? Are they really that dangerous? Are they all like serial killers or, you know, in that element? I don't know. I think it's really interesting.
Do you think there are people in the booktube community who are sociopaths?
Oh, definitely.
Ooh.
Definitely.
Ooh, spilling the tea. Besides me, of course. That does sound interesting. Maybe I will check that one out.
It's 250 pages.
Yeah.
So the next book I recently read, and I actually did a reading vlog on it, it's That Weekend by Kara Thomas. This one takes that familiar trope where a group of friends go camping during the weekend in the mountains, and after a couple of days, after the weekend, the main character wakes up with no memory as to what has occurred or happened, but she wakes up all bloody, found by the police, goes to the hospital, has to try to remember exactly what occurred during that weekend.
Sounds like this weekend with us.
I think this one will be extremely underrated in the fact that it's a YA thriller, and I think it's actually one of the better YA thrillers that I have read recently. And that's saying a lot because when it comes to YA thrillers in general, they just don't do it for me. They don't have a lot of substance, but this one, I feel like the first half read like a typical YA thriller, like you sort of know what to expect. And then the second half just completely blew that proportion out of the water. I think it was just really different and subverted my expectations a lot. Maybe that's why I liked it so much. Kara Thomas, I think, is a pretty prominent YA author as well. She's written several thrillers that I really enjoyed reading. So if you're looking for like a decent YA thriller, highly recommend this one. All right, next up is YA, just in general, I think.
All right. So I have liked a couple YA books, but I think one that is very, very underrated is a series called Defy the Stars. It's so underrated. You probably never...
Claudia Gray.
Yeah, you have?
You're about to say it. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, wait, how'd you hear of it before?
Girl, I've been in BookTube for a long time.
Oh, okay.
I've heard of it. I've seen other people recommend it.
Really? Oh man, I never see like people talk about it.
As if Cindy would catch me off guard.
Yeah, you're right. You're more of a bookworm than I am. I really
like how I know the name of the author when I've never read it.
This is a sci-fi trilogy about a girl and a boy. The girl is a soldier from another planet, and the guy is an AI who was created by the scientists on Earth. Her planet and Earth are currently in this intergalactic war. So they're on...
That sounds really basic. Like, almost
yeah,
like
it's
typical YA sci-fi.
Yeah, honestly, it is like a typical YA sci-fi, but I really enjoyed it.
Was it the characters?
What I love the most in stories are two characters who become unlikely allies, and they go on an adventure together, and they build this relationship with one another. I just love that shit, and I think if it's executed well, then I eat it up. I really liked Defy the Stars because I thought that both characters, like both leading characters, were very different from one another. They held their own ground. They are both really competent. Like when they end up working together, especially like when you read the second book, I don't even have to worry that one of them's gonna be a dumbass like a character usually is in a YA book and like ruins everything, because they have their shit together. And as a couple, I think they work really well together. I think they're so cute. Also, I really liked how they practice communication with each other. So even if they have like a conflict, it's not from a misunderstanding or anything like that. It's just a fun read. I think it will always have a special place in my heart because when I was stuck in the airport for like 3 days, I read that shit in 1 day. And it was such a comfort read to me.
That's cute. That's good.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it.
You finished the trilogy, right?
Yes, I finished the trilogy. And okay, before we turn on the camera, you said that I don't ever read series or finish series.
You don't read, like, series at all, do you?
No, it's hard for me to follow series. And that's because I don't care enough about the book to finish reading the other books. But this one, I enjoyed it. If you're looking for something simple and light and fluffy, and maybe you're like, starting to get into YA and you want something like that.
This relationship, super light and fluffy.
Exactly.
That's literally you.
Like a tiramisu cake.
If I had to name you after a cake, it would be tiramisu.
Why?
Because it's just super light and fluffy
Stupid.
and sweet. Books that I'm going to recommend is actually a series, and I've actually barely talked about it on my channel. I feel like this fantasy series walked so that other fantasy series could run.
I thought we were recommending YA. I just recommended Defy the Stars.
This is YA.
Oh.
You're stupid.
Oh, you said
Let me
fantasy.
finish.
You said fantasy, so I got confused. Because our
Wait.
next category is fantasy.
Wait, am I doing this wrong?
Is this a YA recommendation or a fantasy recommendation?
This is a YA. I literally said YA could literally be any type of genre.
Okay, yeah.
You literally recommended a subgenre
I know, but it's just so funny because you keep on saying fantasy, fantasy, fantasy.
Because the next recommendation is fantasy, but I'm recommending like totally something different.
Okay.
Sydney fucking messed me up.
Well,
Let's
you
start
said
over.
you said the fantasy book I'm going to recommend.
But
so
I said like YA could literally be any genre.
Okay.
Like,
but you didn't say YA, so I was confused.
I was getting there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Editing Ellie's gonna be like, you stupid.
Oh my god. Okay.
Cindy fam, you need to shut the fuck up. Thank you very much. Alright, let me start over. So this series I'm going to be talking about is Seven Realms, a series by Cinda Williams-Chima. I feel like this is such a classic fantasy series that's super underrated at this point because it came out such a long time ago and not a lot of people have read it or even heard about it. It's like very traditional in terms of like it follows sort of that like basic premise where, oh, a chosen one has to sort of defeat the evil.
Ooh, it was the blueprint.
You can say that. This series is fantasy, but it also has like that traditional, I feel like staple medieval type of tropes where it's like castles. It has to do with like wizards and magic in that sort of sense. And it sort of follows these characters who are at such a young age in the beginning. But by the end of the series, when you get to it, they're like so much older, so much growth, all the character development.
All the trauma.
Exactly. Honestly, this series is like a kid's version of Lord of the Rings. I'm just gonna put it at that. I thought it was just so well done, like so well written. There's so many characters and their POVs that you get to read from, so many backstories, and so many twists. Let me tell you, when I say that there are so many twists within this fantasy series, yes, it could be cheesy at times with like the main characters and the dialogue, especially like what they do and stuff. But I feel like, this is like the type of series I want. If I had kids, I would like give these books to them and let them read it.
That's a big praise.
This is actually a very comforting like fantasy series.
You know what? When you're raising your kids, don't raise them with Harry Potter. Raise them with this.
Exactly. Exactly. I really love the series. If you haven't heard of it or, you know, think about giving it a try, here you go. All right. Now we can finally recommend fantasy.
Oh, really? We've never talked about that until this point. What if you only wanted to read a standalone fantasy? What if you don't want to read all those books? You want to keep it simple with one book, not too dense of a world building or anything like that. You just want like a cute little lighthearted book. Well, I would say you should read An Enchantment of Ravens.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, well, you rated that shit 3 stars.
Yeah.
So maybe you didn't love it that much.
I mean, 3 stars is not a bad rating.
Yeah, I know.
That's like a good rating.
I know, but I wouldn't say I loved a 3-star book.
I still liked it.
Okay.
Writing was really great.
Exactly. The writing is very lush and lyrical. It really feels like it's a fairy tale. I like standalone fantasies.
You know, I would have recommended Margaret Rogerson too, but then I was trying so hard to like deviate away from the books I normally talk about.
Right.
I've talked about on my channel. So I would have recommended A Sorcery of Thorns because I felt like that was like Howl's Moving Castle for me.
You like Sorcery of Thorns. I wasn't really into it. I actually felt more Howl's Moving Castle vibes from An Enchantment of Ravens.
It's very Studio Ghibli-esque.
Yes. So if you like the whole Studio Ghibli aesthetic, and if you like the dynamic between Sophie and Howl, I found there to be a similar dynamic between the main characters too. It's a very short, like 300 pages or less. The story is about a girl who's a painter, and she often gets hired by fairies because the fairies in this world aren't able to have basic human skills like painting or making like
great art.
Yeah, create art, making pottery.
Make something beautiful.
Can't do that, even though they're like really powerful. So they rely on humans for that. And so she gets hired by a prince, right? The fairy prince of the Autumn Court. And he wants her to do a portrait of him. So she does. When she finishes, he gets so mad because she drew sorrow in his eyes, which is a really bad thing because apparently there's toxic masculinity in the fairy courts because he can't show sorrow or weak human emotion at all. So he kidnaps her to the Autumn Court so that she can go to court and explain that she messed up. So not off to a good start, but again, it falls in line with what I love in stories, which are
Stockholm Syndrome.
No. Two characters who are unlikely allies go on an adventure together and they fall in love along the way. I feel like I made him sound bad in my summary, but he wasn't bad. He was more like a petulant child, right? And I found it to be endearing. I don't know. I thought they were cute.
I'm excited for her newest book, Vespertine.
I haven't heard of that.
It has Venom, like that story. You know that.
I haven't.
Oh my god, you have never heard of Venom, or do you know what he is?
No. What is that? So much judgment. Listen, this is recommendations, okay?
I'm literally telling you about the author's newest book.
Okay, cool. So I'll check it out.
Oh my
But listen,
god.
we're talking about An Enchantment of Ravens. Read it if you want lush lyrical writing, Studio Ghibli vibes, and a cute little romance.
Okay.
The end.
Alright, so
Queer
fantasy for me.
Oh, yeah, fantasy.
My fantasy recommendation, actually speaking of Studio Ghibli, Cindy mentioned earlier about Studio Ghibli, and if you really like that aesthetic, then I would recommend Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This one mainly follows a couple actually, who just recently got married and they're on their honeymoon. And they go to this certain tower called the Tower of Babel, and in this tower there are, certain levels, and each level is different from each other, where you can like do certain things or the different climate or different people and culture. Seemingly his wife gets kidnapped, and so he goes on this journey through this Tower of Babel to try and get her back. I think it's a very light in terms of like fantasy setting. There isn't really like a magic system or like really anything magical about this book. I think it's just really different in the world that it's set in. Just the different elements, the different surprises that he goes through almost in each contained little world in each level of this tower. And I thought it was just so unique and refreshing because I've never read anything like this before. A fantasy that isn't super reliable on like sort of like a magic system to hold it up. I thought it was really cool. I thought the concept itself was really unique. The characters were really like sort of fleshed out. The main character did like make so many stupid decisions and choices, but I feel like ultimately that built him up to a main character and to a hero that we can like really root for. I feel like if this was made into a movie, Studio Ghibli would probably like do it justice.
I can see that as a movie when you're describing it. That's really cool that it's a fantasy that is in this contained world rather than like an expansive one.
Yeah. If you're looking for just a really fun romp and just a really good adventure time, highly recommend.
Wait, 3 books. Is he stuck in that fucking tower the entire time, or are those spoilers?
Okay, so the tower is actually so fucking ginormous.
Wow, it takes 3 books to get through it?
I'm not sure if he's actually stuck in the tower for the next, like, 2 books, but I know for a fact that we've only explored 3 levels.
Wow.
3 levels, and there's so much to go on.
Damn, that's
like,
wild.
This book is, like, what, 400 pages?
Wow,
So,
and just 3 levels in the tower.
This is like an adult, I guess, fantasy book. Alright, the next one. Queer Rex.
Okay, so the book that I'm going to recommend for a queer book is one of my top favorite books of all time, and definitely the #1 book that had the best writing I've ever read. And that is This Is How You Lose the Time War.
Oh, I've heard of that. I actually have it.
Oh, okay, let me read it.
Wait, hold on. I actually don't know where it is.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's such a thin book, so.
It is. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna find it.
Okay. So this is actually a novella. It's very short.
It's a novella?
Yeah, it's considered a novella because it's so short. Man, they really pack a lot. Not really packing as in plot, but more just like the writing. Like the moment that I listened to the audiobook, I was so into the writing that every time I finished a chapter, I would go back to the beginning of the chapter and listen to it all over again. And then I borrowed the ebook just so that I could physically read it with my eyeballs. That's how much I was into the writing. Not everyone will be into it. Some people will be like, this is so confusing. I don't know what I'm reading. That doesn't matter to me because even if I get confused, I'm like, I'm still into the writing.
Is it sapphic?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Of course, dude.
Sydney here for the girlies.
The story is about 2 time-traveling spies who are on opposite ends of a war. Their mission as time travel agents is to go back through specific time periods and change something, like just a little bit of a change to ensure that their side of the war will win. You don't really get much of like the plot or like the world building at all. It's more so focused on them going to all these random places and then leaving letters for each other because they noticed they've been going to the same places trying to like mess each other up, and so they started leaving letters for the other person to kind of like taunt them that they're gonna win the war. Through those letters, they start to build up a relationship with each other about the
Do they know what they look like?
I don't think so.
Wow, that's like 100% trust right there. You don't know what the other person looks like.
Well, you know,
anything. Like you just find out like a smidge of their personality through these letters.
I just thought the writing was so beautiful. And again, it's not focused on like world building or anything. It's a very repetitive format where each chapter is a new location that an agent just went to. They just changed something and then they pick up the letter that the other agent left off and they read it.
So I actually have a couple books I'm going to recommend. The first one up being Song of Achilles.
Of
by
course.
Miller. Of course. This had to be out here. This had to. This is sort of a different take on the story of the Iliad, specifically on Achilles and Patroclus and their relationship with each other. It was just so devastatingly beautiful, and just everything about this book deserves all the hype. I even made a solely dedicated review just talking about this book. I'm not going to talk too much about it because
you have a whole video dedicated
I already have a whole video dedicated to it. Highly recommend, Cindy. You should read it.
Maybe I will give it a shot. I mean, I did watch her video and I was like, damn, maybe I should pick it up after all.
I'm doing my job. So the other book I want to quickly recommend is The Death of Vivek OJ by Akwaka Emezi. So the book mainly follows the family members after the death of the main protagonist, of how they cope with their death and the events that has occurred before and after. So it's really short, it's really heartbreaking and beautiful, and the writing is just fantastic. I actually cannot wait to read more from the author.
I read their other book, Pet, which was middle grade, I think.
Oh,
and
really?
featured a trans protagonist as well.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I purchased a book when I went to the bookstore called Freshwater. Haven't read it yet, but heard good things, so highly recommend this one.
How can you handle losing a child you never really knew?
It's a transphobia for me. So the last category that we're going to recommend, I guess, is just personalized recommendations. So you go ahead and go first.
You don't really read nonfiction. This could be kind of your introduction to nonfiction. And again, it's an important book, so I think everyone should read it.
Is it Know My Name by Chanel Miller?
Yes, it is.
Fuck, I already had that on my TBR on my list. I really want to read it. I've heard it's like super poignant, and the writing is just
honestly
so real and raw.
If I had to choose my favorite book of all time, it would be this book.
Really?
I listened to an audiobook. She does the narration for the audiobook, so I would recommend that as well. So in case you don't know, the whole book is based on how she was invited to a frat party at her sister's college in Stanford. She got blackout drunk there that she didn't remember anything. but she was raped by a Stanford freshman, Brock Turner, who left her body behind, like, in front of a dumpster. And she was only rescued when 2 Swedish students, they were exchange students, they were biking through, and they saw him with her, and they noticed that her body was limp, like she was not responding at all, and they were like, what the hell are you doing? They chased him off, and she woke up in the hospital the next day, twigs and leaves and everything, like pine needles, like in her hair and everything, and she had no idea what was going on, and she found out, and it was such like a traumatic experience. And so the whole book, first it leads up to how that happened, but then I thought what was really interesting was expanding how slow and archaic the justice system is, because she goes through the entire process of going to court and how long and draining it is, because they're so fucking slow and incompetent at what they do, and she basically had to give up her whole life just to find a semblance of justice. Even though it's so awful, like the writing was amazing. The reason why her case became notorious was because she wrote a victim impact statement, and BuzzFeed published that statement when she used to be anonymous, so nobody knew her name at the time. The statement was so powerful that it became viral. People all over the world were like reading it.
The book is called Know My Name.
Yeah, and so eventually, finally, she revealed her identity. And that's the book, Know My Name. And she explains her whole story.
Goosebumps.
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps too. I don't know. I'm getting like emotional just like talking about it. I think also you would really appreciate it because she grew up in the Bay Area too. Yeah. She grew up in Cupertino, and we are from San Jose. So she is honestly like someone that we could have been friends with. So I'm gonna end it here so I don't ramble too much, but it's my favorite book of all time. And I think it's really important for you, like as a man, to read it too. Yeah, I think it should be.
I feel like it should be
required
like,
reading.
Required reading for every single man.
Yeah.
So that they know, especially straight men.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Cindy, so this is more for you than anyone else, but also for you guys as well. My personalized recommendation will be Black Iris by Elliot Wake. So this is a dead name because the author, he goes by Elliot Wake now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're trans. And this was written like before he transitioned. This was like literally one of the best written new adult books I've ever read in my entire life. It was truly cathartic in a way that it was super angsty and edgy and just so like fucking dark. So this is literally Promising Young Woman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, have you ever heard of this book before?
No, I have never heard of this book before.
It's about this girl and a stupid jester for a hopeless crush. And then the rumors begin. They call her a slut, queer, psycho. So messed up that even her mother decided that she wasn't even worth sticking around for. If Lainey could erase the whole year, she could. College is her chance to start with a clean slate. She's not looking for friends, but they find her, a handsome dude named Armin, and a fiery, filterless girl named Blythe, a bad girl and partner in crime who has thorns of her own. Lainey knows that nothing good ever lasts, but when a ghost from her past resurfaces, a bully who broke her down completely, she decides it's time to live up to her own legend and her name. And Armin and Blythe are going to help. Because the rumors are all true, every single one, and Lainey is going to show just how true. She's going to show them all.
Yeah, I do love a good revenge story, especially when it's standing up to homophobia.
Alright, well that's pretty much it. I feel like this went over way longer than I expected, so...
Half it was bloopers.
Hope you guys got some, decent recommendations from the both of us. Please let us know down in the comments below if you guys have read any of these books, what did you guys think of them, and give us, your recommendations. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you all soon with a new video.
Bye. Okay, so I like a lot of I love stories that are about two unlikely characters. What I love the most about hold on, I'm gonna start all over.
Alright, so the fantasy books that I'm gonna... Oh my god, I cannot fucking speak. It's so annoying. Okay, so the fantasy series that I'm gonna recommend... Oh my god. People think that, oh, it's super easy when it comes to talking about, everything. And I'm like, no, for me, I'm the most articulate person on BookTube.
Inarticulate.
See? I feel like I'm literally the worst when it comes to explaining or even talking in general. Ew.